So, welcome to the Economic Diary. And today I want to talk about why it is difficult to revive the economy in 100 days. I think these are some of the things that we have been told by our politicians, especially during the time of the campaign. And actually, this is something that came from both sides of the divide. But why is it very difficult for us to get to that point? I think I'm going to talk about three things. And the first thing that I want to discuss is the issue of the the situation the economy is right now. Now, one of the things that we need to understand is that the economy is not in shambles because of just the internal matters, but also external matters. And some of the matters or some of the issues that have actually brought some of the challenges that we are seeing one, COVID-19. We had a situation where we were not producing to our capacity, basically because the world was closed down. And this had a very big hit to the economy. Then we have an issue of debt. One of the things that we need to understand is that we have accumulated a lot of debts, especially from 2019 13. If you look at our debt portfolio in this country, it's about 8.7 trillion Kenya shillings. And now, one of the challenges of accumulation of some of such debts is that you need to repay some of those loans because you're given loans, and anytime you have loans, you have to repay them. Now, we have a situation where we are repaying the loans and we are not also increasing our GDP or our output. And therefore, it we get to a situation where the amount of money that we are paying debts with is becoming actually a hindrance to our development. Let me give you an example. This country borrows 2.5 billion daily. And if you look at what some of the reports that we were getting in July, is that out of the 2.5 billion or 70, about 76 billion that was being borrowed daily by the government so that it can be able to run its affairs. Half of that money was going to the payment of the debts that have already been accumulated. So we are in a situation where we are living in a very complicated situation, and therefore even the incoming government will have a big challenge because it will be difficult for them to stop borrowing or to live without borrowing, basically because there's no other way in which you can be able to actually have money to run the government. If you look at our GDP or our output or our production, our KRA just collects about 2 trillion Kenya shillings per year or per financial year. Now, if you look at 2 trillion, and then you look at our budget, which is usually about 3.2, 3.6 trillion, you can see the big hole that is supposed to be sealed by debts. Now, that hole that is being supposed to be sealed by debt means that we accumulate more debts for some of those projects that we want to actualize. So I'm not saying that some of those infrastructural projects should not be carried out because the infrastructure is very important, especially when it comes to the production. But I'm just saying that if you look at the hole that we usually have, then it becomes very difficult for us also not for us to repay some of those debts. So that is one of the challenges that we have with the new government. So as the new government is coming in and promising many things in 100 days, I think one of the things that they need to understand and also to actualize in themselves is that they have to continue repaying the debts and also borrowing so that they can be able to fund the recurrent expenditure. Now, another challenge is what I've talked about, the issue of COVID-19. If you look at COVID-19, it reduced the production capability of the country. And I think since 2020, this is the time that we are going back to the production capability that we had. Now, I'll give you an example of the tourism sector, which was hit hard. If you go back to some of the reports that we have had, you will realize that before the COVID-19, we used to collect about 167 billion, between 167 to 200 billion per year from tourism. But if you look at the year 2020-2021 financial year, you will find that that figure went down to about 60 or 50 billion. And actually the government or the economy was relying on what we call the domestic tourism, basically because the world was locked. So we still have not been able to get to that point where we can be able to say that our tourism sector and other sectors that were affected have gone back to their uh, their to the normal position of production, and therefore we still have a very big gap when it comes to the revenue collection. Now, another challenge that maybe we should also look at is the issue of what is happening globally. If you look at the issue of the fights or the war between the Russians and the Ukraine, they are also affecting some of these countries, especially the developing countries like Kenya, basically because we are importing countries. We are countries that actually rely on imports. If you look at wheat, you look at petroleum product, and you look at many other things, we get them from some of those countries. So when those countries have a problem, then it becomes very difficult for us to be able to actualize or to get what we want from these government from these governments, and therefore it also affects our production and also our consumption. So what I'm trying to say is that as much as we have promised our people that we are going to do much in the next 100 days, because of some of the challenges that we are in, I think it will become very difficult for some of those things to be actualized or some of those promises to be actualized. And that is why, for those of you who have listened to me on the media, I have said that the new government must do something very simple. Try to subdivide some of those promises into three. You have the short-term promises, you have the mid-term promises, and also the long-term promises. And with that, what is going to happen is that you can be able to actually actualize some of those promises simpler and also step by step, because that is the only way you can be able to to actually achieve some of those things. Now, if you look at our challenges right now, the biggest challenge is the cost of living. And the question is, how do we deal with the cost of living in a country where we have a problem of the imported inflation from the petroleum products, and we also have a problem of the drought inflation, basically because we did not have good rains in this country this year, and therefore the production of food or agricultural products or food essentials is low in the country. So we are waiting to see how the government is going to maneuver some of these things. But allow me to say that it is not as easy as people are thinking or as easy as people want to imagine. So thank you very much for being part of the channel. I do believe that I have actually created value for you, especially when it comes to understanding the situation as it is. So I wish you the best and have a nice day.